welcome to the Voice of Meaning interviews.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. Our purpose is to interview people who are working in the area of the 8 pillars, and the pillar of meaning is one of the most important parts, and we hope to have numerous interviews of people who are involved in the area of meaning in life. 13 years ago, in my financial practice, I had 4 people during the year who died unexpectedly, and I found myself needing to be more than just a financial advisor, to somehow compassionately help the families with their loss and to deal with it. And coincidentally, just the year before, I read a book by Anne Graber called Viktor Frankl's Logotherapy and Method of Pastoral Counseling. And then when I saw through the Viktor Frankl Institute that there was a distance learning class, I sent them an email, said that no, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist, I'm a financial advisor, but I feel I need these skills. And a day after I sent that email, I received a phone call from Anne Graber, and she said exactly, well, we have not taught a financial advisor yet. When do you want to get started? And I took her class and benefited greatly from it, and my clients after that benefited greatly from my new skills in helping with meaning in life issues. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the why you went into this field and what motivated you to do it.
I would be happy to. Well, first of all, I grew up in Austria, so Austria emphasizes good education, and I felt after coming to the United States as a young adult, yes, but then I got married and we had children, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't mind cooking, cleaning, diapering, what have you. That was wonderful, but I also needed an intellectual outlet, and I found a reading group in my neighborhood through the library, and we had members in this group who, particularly one who had just retired from being a college professor, and she would always point to books of interest, and she came up with Viktor Frankl's Meaning in Life book. It had just been made available in translation, in English translation. So that was my first hook into logotherapy. And what I loved about it was Frankl's expanded understanding of what is a human being. Yes, we have a body, we have a mental aspect, we have an emotional aspect, but all 3 of these together do not comprise the totality of our humanness. He added a 4th quadrant, and being a physician and psychiatrist, resorted to a medical term. He called it the noetic dimension. Others would have termed it maybe spiritual or the awesome dimension. The dimension we have access to when we are in awe, when we get an inspiration or an intuitive knowing. And so that's what fascinated me. And so I read everything I could get my hands on. At the time, not too much was available in English yet. And then fate struck. I was involved in an accident. We were rear-ended, and it caused an injury that was undetected at the time to my neck because we didn't have scans at the time yet, and x-rays didn't show that the cartilage was torn that held my spinal cord together. And so gradually my left arm went numb, my left hand wouldn't type anymore, and at the time I was also working part-time in the hospital as in medical records, typing dictations doctors had left. So I tried this, that, and the other, and found an exercise that would relieve the pressure a little bit, and I could type for a few hours. And this is what I was doing on that fateful morning when I slid off the bed doing my exercise and landed on my neck and couldn't move at all. And then I concluded, paralyzed. I'm quadriplegic. And it was such a shocking discovery. And so I tried to absorb this horrific news. And then it felt like some voice within me spoke, telling me, stop your sniveling. This is not the time to feel sorry for yourself. Use what little time you have to put your inner house in order. And it was as if the CEO of my intrapsychic board of regents had spoken. Whether we call this God, higher self, guardian angel, I don't know. But a higher wisdom was in charge here. And heeding its directives, I had to acknowledge that I was probably about to die. So how does one prepare to die? Well, first thing I really wanted to do was, with deep love and caring, I took my leave from those near and dear to me, at least in thought and feeling. And I may not be alive anymore by the time they came back, and this was early in the morning. Everybody had already left. And so, as I reached the point of relinquishment of my life, I also came to the conclusion, well, if I had to do it over, I probably wouldn't do any better. And in that sense, it was comforting. And the tranquility and the stillness began to permeate my being, and I was at peace. And then gradually, my last conscious thought was a prayer I had learned a long time ago. Into your hands I commend my spirit, O Lord.
Wow.
And that was the end of my conscious awareness. And then something happened that was beyond my comprehension at the time. I found myself in the presence of others, of very benevolent beings. They were not so much visible, but they were identifiable by their inner qualities that radiated forth from them and permeated this realm I was in, giving it a beautiful shimmering glow. It was a wonderful place, a state of being. I felt as if I was on hallowed ground. There was pure currents of pure compassion and radiant love and infinite wisdom, aliveness and vitality that sustained me and others and worlds without end. And I felt wondrously safe there, and eventually I concluded, I am home. And the sense of being at home, I felt warmly welcome, and I was given to understand that my life's learning tasks were completed. What joy, I can stay here. And the thought of spending eternity in that awesome realm filled me with an ecstasy that's unimaginable where I had come from. And then a drama was staged. I understood they're going to show me something for my edification, if you will. And what they showed me was that our planet, the Earth, will be experiencing chaotic whirling of energies all around the planet, and that souls are needed who can be stable elements, points of stillness, while these winds of change and transformation blow about. And so I intuited an invitation. Will you be one of them? What? Go back into that crumpled body that's beyond repair? I didn't want to leave that wondrously shimmering realm, nor the company of those magnificent beings. But it was not polite to say no to God or to his emissaries, whoever they were. So I gave my consent to return for an extended tour on planet Earth. And here I am. And this happened 39 years ago, last Sunday. And I have a bouquet of beautiful white roses sitting here from my children that says 39 years and more to come. Love you, Mom, the kids. So, at the time, if I had known, I would be in a but unbelievable things have happened since then. And certainly, if you find yourself quadriplegic, you're looking for meaning in life. And what I had read by Viktor Frankl helped tremendously. The whole concept of who we are as human beings, that we have a higher dimension as well as thinking, feeling, and physical existence, material body. And so when Frankl could survive what he had to go through, others could too, and make use of what he taught. And so day by day by day, looking for things to be grateful in spite of all the things that hurt, that were unmanageable, there was always looking at life from a positive vantage point, produced meaningful experiences. And in spite of it all, it gave me a purpose in life, even though I'm stuck in a wheelchair and very dependent. And it's hard to explain what brought about the healing, such as it is. But I spent about 3 months in the hospital. I had surgeries. I had ongoing medical help. And about a year after I was released from the hospital, I went back. I had talked to a nurse. Well, what can I take to the nurses to say thank you? And she assured me, chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. We love chocolate. Okay, so I bought the best chocolate we have here and go to the hospital. And I get off the elevator, and one of the nurses recognizes me, and she starts to yell, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" She walks. She was a quad. And it just so happened I was there around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was a shift change, so the morning nurses were there, and the afternoon shift was there. They all recognized me. Yeah, I had been in that intensive care unit for 3 months, and they knew me, and they were just astonished. "What did you do to be able to walk again?" I said, "Well, you took good care of me, didn't you?" But I really feel this inner attitude that I brought to my condition helped a lot. It helped me to get out of my poor me attitude to, "Oh, thank you. What can I do today that would be helpful to others?" And so that was the outer experience I had. On another level, something so amazing happened to this day. We don't have an explanation. In my mailbox one day, there is a flyer. Oh, I, of course, wanted to study logotherapy, but where and how? I can't get to Vienna. After all, I'm busy here with family. And then one day in the mailbox, there is a flyer advertising a logotherapy seminar in Kansas City. Now, we're back in 88 or 89, and they're bringing Dr. Elizabeth Lucas over to do a week-long seminar in Kansas City. I live in St. Louis, and I felt I have got to get across the state to attend the seminar. So that was my first official logotherapy class, and I had read some of her books in German, and it was just a wonderful experience. And then later on, I went to Germany to take further, do further work with her. And so eventually I earned my diplomate in logotherapy. That would have been in 1993. And then I felt, well, I have now a diplomate, but if I'm going to be teaching people who have graduate degrees, I better get a doctorate. And looking around, work in one go and get a doctorate, I was pointed to the Graduate Theological Foundation, because looking around here at colleges and universities, I found, well, many of the students hadn't been out of our state yet. And this just wasn't my social setting. I wanted people with a broader background, cultural background, religious background. And so I found this at the Graduate Theological Foundation. It was just wonderful to be with people from every continent, every religious persuasion. Some even stated, well, I am not religious, but I'm spiritual. And so the diversity was great. And I felt in our world today that is globalizing at such a rapid rate, we need to be able to interact with people with a diverse background and from different cultures, languages, what have you. And so this brought me to the official study of logotherapy. And then eventually Frankl's logotherapy, method of choice in ecumenical pastoral psychology, was my PhD dissertation.
This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of this. For those who are not familiar with the term logotherapy, would you recommend that they read Man's Search for Meaning as a beginning way to delve into that?
Yes, and even if you look, that was Frankl's first book that he published after his release from the concentration camp. So that would be a good beginning. His latest book at the time, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. Here, he is retired and he feels he can speak more freely what he really wants to say. He isn't tied into the medical structure anymore, and he addresses the ultimate meaning more and more the spiritual awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the last book we use in our courses. We begin with Man's Search for Meaning, and we end in the fourth course with Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. So yeah, that would be a good start.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll put links to it on our channel. Right, you're still currently teaching at the Graduate Theological Foundation.
Yes, yes, I enjoy teaching. You know, recently I needed to kind of take a look at who does what. What have I done in the 39 years that I was left here on this planet? And now I can gratefully acknowledge that it was a gift of grace. In no way could I have imagined that waking up again, I would earn 2 doctorates, be awarded an honorary doctorate, be awarded accreditation for the program we initiated at the Graduate Theological Foundation, accredited by the Viktor Frankl Institute in Vienna. So it's an international accreditation of our program, Pastoral Logotherapy at GTF, and on and on. I mean, this happens to a quad, and just astounding, this need to recognize the gifts of life instead of bemoaning our weaknesses.
Wonderful. So you're currently teaching. Can you give me some examples, without disclosing confidential things, of some of your students and how they applied the knowledge from the class to what they do in their lives?
Yes, I'd be happy to. To show the diversity, the first example I'd like to give is I received a call from he had been a former student by this time, and he called to say, I'm an African American Muslim imam. And he's very quickly explained, we, someplace on the East Coast, have to quickly evacuate a nursing home due to flooding. And what do we have in logotherapy that would help? So I had to tell him, well, we don't exactly have a technique that would help you evacuate a nursing home that's flooding, but let's go beyond or deeper. Before Frankl developed his techniques, he had certain premises they are based on. And for instance, he always advocated, before you attempt to do any therapeutic intervention, establish a trust bridge with the person. In other words, you have to make a social connection that is trustworthy. Okay, so then he calls back and explains what he did. And I was so impressed. He said he went to his colleagues, also pastoral counselors in the nursing home, and suggested, friends, let's take off our clerical vestments and approach these dear scared people in our street clothes. And he said, if we go in looking like an imam or a priest or whatever, they will just think, oh, he's coming to convert me. I don't want to be converted. We don't need to add to their anxiety. But he said, I went in, he took off his regalia, and street clothes walks in and says, hi, I'm here to help you get out. What do you need? How can I help? And so he's reaching out in a helpful manner. And then the person can respond. And he said, oh yeah, they were glad to hear that, and they needed help getting out of bed or have me push their wheelchair or whatever. And he said, I always reminded them, is there anything you would quickly like to take with you? If this place gets flooded, it may not survive. Some, he said, reached for their prayer beads. Others wanted a family photo they could clutch to themselves and before they were pushed out of the room. And then he said, fortunately, we got everybody out. We didn't lose anybody. But the facility where we took them to is so overcrowded. Poor people, every hall is filled with beds of old, most of them were old. But anyway, they were saved from the flood at least. But wasn't that amazing that he could encourage his colleagues, pastoral counselors, to take off their clerical vestments and approach people as people. I'm here to help. So he emphasized this trusting. Very important in Frankel's methods of the therapizing. And then the next example I have is from a conservative rabbi. And this rabbi was telling me the story that the high holy days are coming up, and she will read the scriptures, but she said, even in the scriptures, if I come upon the word death, it's like a door slams. I don't want to hear any more about death. So, how is she to present, to address the topic of death? And so she chose Viktor Frankl's terminology, the transitoriness of life. And Viktor Frankl is very adamant about there's some things in life we cannot change. Life is transitory. We will all die someday. But because of this understanding, the sooner we address the issue of our transitoriness, the better we can prepare for it. And preparing for it would mean leading a decent life. If I do my best, given what I have to work with, there is nothing to fear at the end, is there? I've done what I could, given what I had to work with. And so she emphasized this, and then she gave a personal example of an experience she had. And she said, one day I get a call from my dear mother. Dad had already passed on, but mother called to say she was in the hospital. Get me out of here. I don't want any more treatments. The treatment is worse than the disease. I'm old enough. I'm ready to die. I'm ready. I've lived long enough. Just take me home so I can die in peace. So what does an obedient daughter do? She goes and gets her mother and brings her home to her home. And she said, oh my goodness, this is the first time in my life when mother and I had time together and I could really listen to her. And she said, while I was growing up, I was so busy running here and there, I never had time to hear what Mom had to say. And now she was very eager to learn more about her mother's life. And mother told her that they were happily married and they looked forward to a family. And then she was pregnant with her. And she said his mother talked about it so caringly, I could attune to what she was saying. And she said, then I wondered, well, what did it feel like for me being in utero and experiencing all this? Mother was describing. They're happily married. They're looking forward to my coming. And she said, yes, pregnancy proceeded normally, and it got tighter and tighter as I grew bigger and bigger. But she said, all was well. And then one day something happened. Contractions started. At first it was fairly mild, but it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And she said, I was so scared. I didn't know what is happening. Who's trying to hurt me? This hadn't happened before. All my needs had been met. And this went on and on and on. And yes, mother told her she was in labor for 96 hours. And the fetus in utero experienced it also. And it was scary. And then she said, that's the fetus talking. And then she said, suddenly, I was thrown out, pushed out. And she said, the first thing I experienced was, oh my, I can stretch out my little legs. I can extend my little arms. And then another amazing thing happened. I took my first breath. That's new. What is that? And after a while, she said, I opened my eyes and, what am I seeing? Nothing like this existed where I come from. So she's experiencing life in a much more freer way than it was in utero. And then she takes this a step further by saying, and now mother is in the last stages of her death process. Could it be that she's going through another labor process that will land her in a more expanded reality? And as she focused on that, she said, well, I want her to be free and pain-free. And not that I know what it will be like for her, but I certainly hope that she experiences something like I experienced, coming from a very defined, closed, tight environment into something much freer and bigger. And so that, she said, made, she felt heard by her congregation as she explained the transitoriness of life in this way, instead of just death and dying.
Wow.
Well, she was certainly grateful to have come upon this term, transitoriness of life, and it really is a transition, especially if we look at it from our being in utero and then we experiencing this life outside of the uterus, and eventually we're transitioning into something other. We don't quite know yet, but certainly hope is there for a more awe-filled reality.
That's a beautiful account. Thank you.
Okay. And then this third one dealt with attitude. That's another big thing in Frankl. In his meaning triangle, for instance, he says, we experience meaning in three ways. First of all, what we give to life. Anything and everything that I give of myself to others, even in self-expansion, my own creative expression of whatever, may it be cooking, baking, music, drawing, preaching, teaching, financial help. So that's what is mine to give. That's one avenue. The other one would be what I receive from life. And that involves gratitude, being grateful for what is and appreciating it. And the third angle is when something unavoidable, an unavoidable fate we have to face, as was in my case, the attitude will matter, the attitude we bring to the situation. So this third example comes from a Catholic priest. I received a beautiful note from this former student, and he describes himself as, at the time, he accompanying handicapped pilgrims to a very prominent, famous pilgrimage place, Lourdes. He said, when we left here, they would be gone for a week. When we left here, there was high anxiety among the group. How can we get around? How can we get on the plane, get off the plane? And then where are we going to stay? And how are we going to get around? And on and on and on. He said, I was not so much there as the priest. I was more or less pushing wheelchairs. And so he certainly sensed and felt and experienced their high anxiety. And he said, we finally arrive, and yes, we go to the grotto every day, and people pray. And he said some thought they felt better, but nobody left their wheelchair and walked away. And now he said, we're on our way back home, but he said, something happened. The peacefulness that he's experiencing being with them now is unbelievable. He said, even though nobody experienced the healing some may have hoped for, there was an inner healing that took place. And that is now very evident in their peacefulness, in their attitude toward each other. They want to extend themselves. What do you need? What do I have that you could use? And on and on. He said, this inner change is probably even more fantastic than if somebody had just walked out of their wheelchair. So he was very, very impressed with how attitudinal change is also a miracle, if you will. It certainly filled him with awe to talk about it and write about it. So here we have three very different people of not only different religious persuasions, the priest, the rabbi, the imam, but also of culture and color, if you will, and all pointing to something very deeply meaningful they found in logotherapy when they applied it.
Wow. So thank you for those examples. And I'm curious to get your perspective on finding meaning as we age. I personally am 7 years beyond what my life expectancy was when I was born. So my expiration date is long ago. And we always ask, how are we going to find meaning as we grow older? Do you have any thoughts about this?
Do I? Do they? When you're such a youngster compared to me. And so, first of all, it's just awesome that I'm still teaching. I mean, people, yeah, my age are retirees long ago. But anyway, I'm still active as an instructor, professor. But how do I find meaning in as I age? I have shifted from being the instructor to being the empathic listener. Empathic, you mentioned before, something about compassionate listening to your clients.
Yes.
Okay. When you are, especially in Western culture, we haven't cultivated the art of listening yet. Everybody is so busy talking. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely, including myself.
No. And people, especially in their trials, in their travail, as we experienced the last 3 years, are looking for a listener. And so I now think of myself as my next step would be to become this compassionate, empathic listener. And when you approach somebody empathically, they feel free to share. If you're there as an advisor, they're not going to tell you the whole thing.
Wonderful advice.
But if you're there as, what can I do for you? I'm basically here, and many of my former clients and students, it's, I'm no longer officially in practice, but why don't you stop by and we'll have some coffee? And then they pour out their grief, their sorrow, their travail, whatever it may be. So this is another good Viennese practice. You can discuss anything over coffee.
Yes. Yeah, I met with a group of gentlemen every Wednesday morning for coffee for the last 9 or 10 years, and right now I'm grieving the loss of one of my coffee buddies who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Yes, but have wonderful memories of great conversations. And thank you so much for the time you took I think we've all learned a lot. I will reference your two books. I'll reference Man's Search for Meaning and Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning, the Graduate Theological Foundation, which I'm.
And please mention that we offer the certificate to anybody who's interested in, or even just signing up for a given course.
Thank you. You've just mentioned it. And I think while you're still teaching, it's a great opportunity to possibly take one of your classes. So again, I'm going to close. This was the Voice of Meaning. If you like the interview, please share it with others. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to interview many worthwhile, interesting people. And if you would like to be interviewed or have a suggestion, please communicate with us in the comments. And I will say good day.